Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crush That Exam. My name is Dr. Erica Liggins, licensed clinical psychologist and EPPP coach. I have yet another success story with me today, and I can't wait to share their story. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jalisa Barnes. I am a psychologist from Brooklyn, New York. I recently passed the EPPP. Is that all you wanted to know or more?
Yeah, tell us maybe what type of population you work with.
So I was trained, my postgraduate training specified or focused on school psychology. So I am a trained and New York State certified school psychologist. My career started in the school environment. And then I moved more into private practice. I also have experience in early intervention, working with the babies with developmental delays. And I have a little bit of experience working with adults, also with developmental delays and different types of mental illnesses.
Wonderful. So you have a breadth of different experiences, and it's going to be really exciting to see where your career can go now that you're fully licensed. But before we talk about future plans, take us back. We want to know more about what was your EPPP experience like prior to seeking my coaching services?
The best word I can describe is devastating. I went through a series of life transitions while trying to study. And I also, I realized this a bit later on that I really didn't have a community of licensed psychologists. I have a lot of exposure to professionals in general, but it's like lawyers and teachers and doctors, but nobody in this specific field. And so when it came time to start preparing for this exam, I really had no concept of what it took, what the process was, everything that I needed to know. I went through a lot of trial and error, I guess is the best way to describe it. So, and just failing every time. So I actually failed the exam 4 times before I found you and connected with you. And it was just very, very difficult for me. I am your classic overachiever, type A, can be type A personality. And I kind of pick and choose what I apply myself to. So to have something where I'm applying myself and it's just not working, it's just not panning out, it was very, very difficult and just devastating. That's the word I had to keep coming back to.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the hardest things about this, we're going through this like by ourselves in a little silo, and you're working like a little worker bee. And then when it's not working out, but you don't know what's wrong, it can be really maddening. And then all the money and time and everything that's going into it. I mean, there's a lot of really strong emotions around this.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually were like a typical person I work with, where by the time they've gotten to me, they've really kind of been through this a few times, and they're just feeling a lot of anxiety and stress around this process, which is totally understandable given the impact of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what made you say, okay, I'm going to give this particular coach a chance? Because you could have went with anyone.
Well, I had actually tried a tutoring service, but that didn't really pan out. It didn't work. I still failed. And someone had recommended me to you. And when I first looked on your website, you were like booked out. And I was kind of in this like rushed state of mind, which I now realize kind of worked against me, where it was just like, I need to pass now. I need, and can't wait, can't wait, can't wait. And so as a result, I didn't want to wait for your opening, and I went with this other company that wasn't personally recommended. They just had openings and it didn't work out. So then I had signed up to take the exam again. And at this point, I pretty much had given up. It was more of just like a formality, like I'll keep taking it until I can't take it anymore. But I wasn't really willing to. I had also like dedicated a lot of my time and a lot of my life to studying. So that was another reason it was so devastating, because I I don't know what to study or how to study, but also it's taking up my whole life. And so I was in this mindset of like, I'm not going to give up my whole life to study anymore. And I'm basically done trying, but I'm going to just keep going and hope that almost like I luck out. So I happened to go back on your website. And I also saw like this video of you on YouTube. You were doing some sort of seminar workshop, and you were talking about the EPPP process, and you were speaking directly to my experience. And so just kind of almost on a fluke, it was just like, well, let me just see what opening she has, what she has to say. And you happen to have an opening for like that weekend. And so I was just like, I'll just see what she has to say. And, it was just a very, productive discussion. And I actually went ahead and just pushed my test date back and gave you that chance. And I'm really, really happy that I did.
Oh, I'm so glad
It
you
ended
did
up being
too.
what I needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So during the process of working with me, I think we worked together for, I don't even know, like 3, 4 months,
4 months,
4 months,
Mhm.
something like that. Okay. So for those who are watching, my coaching system has two parts. It has the audio program, which gives people the basis of my whole process, gives them all the strategies up front so that they have a plan. And then the meetings with me is literally just to keep you on track. It's very similar to if you work with a fitness coach, they might give you a workout plan and a nutrition plan, and then you meet with them regularly to make sure you're following it. So, what do you think were the top three most helpful things about my coaching system in general, including both the audio part and the weekly sessions that we did?
I think the audio part was a good introduction before we could get into the actual coaching. And what it did and what I needed was somebody to help me conceptualize how to study for this exam because I was totally lost. And then working with you helped me not only cultivate a plan, but kind of like you said, to stick to the plan because I knew I had to, answer to you on what I did that week or how productive I was or whatever the case was. And then also alter the plan as needed. So it definitely, and it also just helped me. It was encouraging because it was just like, I'm not in this by myself. There is somebody who has answers for me. And I kind of laugh because I'm like, she probably thinks I'm so standoffish, but like I wasn't allowing myself to get very emotional. But I did notice that you just kept being encouraging and you were giving me the feedback that I needed. So the top three I would say was the feedback that I got from the coaching, the ability to conceptualize not only the exam, but how to study for the exam or how to even develop a plan for the exam. And just kind of along the way, you kind of created a visual so that it didn't seem so impossible, which it felt like at the beginning.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. I think that's one of the top things that people say when they start working with me. They're like, "Oh my God, feel like I have a plan now."
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they have, tried other things and still didn't feel like they had something that was like grounding them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me as a non-neurotypical person, I need a plan, I need a system. Otherwise, I get overwhelmed and I get paralyzed
Mm-hmm.
and I can't really move forward unless I understand where we're going. So,
Right.
really happy that you felt grounded
Mm-hmm.
in the process. Now, even with that said, it's still not easy, right? It's still a lot of hard work to study for this exam. I'm very open about the fact that my coaching system does not cut corners. I make
Mm-hmm.
people get in there and really do that work.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the hardest thing that you had to overcome while going through my coaching system?
Honestly, it was just probably my own, I guess attitude is the best way to describe it. Again, at that point, I was just so kind of defeated. And I'm actually getting a little emotional thinking about it now. I was so like done.
Yes.
And it was very hard to keep myself motivated. I was also kind of battling beating myself up about it, because after, everything got started, it was just like, oh, well, this is so, simple in concept. Like, it's not easy to commit to doing and stay committed to doing. But it's also like, if I knew this a year ago, if I knew this a year and a half ago, like, I'd be done. And, why are you always rushing? And why, so it was a lot of just kind of battling my own internal conflict, and kind of, again, which is why I wouldn't really allow myself to get too emotional, because I just know me. And so I had to kind of try to keep myself on an even keel. And then every so often, just that feeling of like, there's other stuff that I want to be doing. So like, this is a stressful process. I gained a lot of weight during this process, and I just couldn't bring myself to do like the self-care things that I know I needed to do. So cooking healthy meals, working out regular, like it just didn't ever feel like there was enough time. So for me, it was a few internal conflicts. And that really interfered with my motivation. So I guess the all encompassing word was just staying motivated to keep doing it. And I had to keep finding different ways to motivate myself or reward myself, changing up my study habits, changing up my location. I would do different things with like writing notes, and I'd like watch mindless TV while I'm writing the notes, because I'm like, I need something else to think about, because if I sit here just trying to write notes, my brain is gonna go 1,000 other places. So it was a motivation, just finding ways to stay motivated, keep myself going, and not give up. That's where I was at that point.
I tell you, this is really a journey of like mind over matter because you're tired, you're exhausted, you just want this to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being so open and real about that, because this thing, it really takes a lot of grit to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't give any shortcuts. So you have to look so deep within yourself to find the thing that you need to keep going. And I appreciate you sharing that. Now, I want to ask another really quick follow-up question, because during our journey, your test date was rapidly approaching. And as a coach, I was looking at the test date and I could tell that that wasn't the test date for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I suggested that you push it back another, I think I said 3 to 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know, how did that feel? And be real about it. How did that feel at the time? And how do you feel about it looking back now, having to push and study another, I think it was another like 3 weeks?
Again, at the time, I was so defeated, and it was back to, and I got a little annoyed with you, because I was like, you couldn't see this coming a week or so ago. Like, it was just kind of like, how you let me get here? Because it was maybe like 2 weeks before the test date, and I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm like, how did you let me get here? And now you're like, push it back again,
Yeah.
because I had pushed it back from the first time we met. And so I was a little annoyed with you, and a
Mhm.
little annoyed with me, because it was also, I knew I had because I mean, I was human, and giving myself grace, but I had taken a week or so off. So it was just kind of, again, going back to like that beating myself up, like, well, why couldn't you just push through that 1 week that you had a hard time, pushing through, and you just said, take that week. So I was very frustrated. And actually, initially, I was kind of like, absolutely not. I'm gonna take the test the day that I'm gonna take it, and if that ain't it, then that just ain't, and so I was very adamant against it. I didn't even want to entertain the idea. And then, thank God, God got through to me, my mom got through to me, and it was just kind of like, listen, if she's saying it, then, and so I think I went back and asked you. So I didn't like just go back and say right away, okay. I was just like, okay, why specifically are
Yes.
you asking me about pushing this date back? And you gave whatever. So I was just kind of like, and I literally, as you were talking, I just went ahead and did it. I was like, before I change my mind, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it, and it is what it is. Now, obviously, I'm very thankful that I listened. Because I did end up, I passed, and I won't even say barely. I got like 43 points
Yeah,
over
you passed
what I needed.
comfortably,
So,
comfortably.
I'm thankful that I did listen, but at the time I was just like, no. Not happening.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let me tell you something. That is one of the hardest parts of this job, is negotiating when we're going to take the test, because in my ideal perfect situation, we wouldn't book it until we're close to ready. But obviously, if I'm coming in with someone who's already booked a date, or maybe where they live, dates are really hard to come by. Sometimes we do have to push them out. But it's so hard to know until you get there, like if somebody's really going to be ready. So I try to tell them as soon as I can, but sometimes we have to do a couple practice exams to really see. I need to see a pattern.
Mhm.
And so I know that was a hard conversation that day. And I'm so glad that you came back and that we talked about it again and you were able to see my rationale and clearly it all worked out. And I'm so grateful for my little guardian angels out there who are like an extension of my coaching, because there have been quite a few people that I've worked with where I encourage them to push the date back, even sometimes just 2 weeks, just a little bit more to give them that cushion. And a lot of times they feel exactly how you felt, like, oh no, I'm taking this exam when it's scheduled, I'm done with this. And if it wasn't for the little guardian angels, parents, friends, significant others who are like, well, maybe she has a point. Well, maybe, you know, I don't know that they would have changed their mind. So tell your mom thank you. I'm so grateful for her just supporting you and echoing my message. And I'm so glad you waited, because I think had you not, I don't know if we'd be sitting here right now celebrating.
Mhm.
And I'm just so glad that you're done with all of this. So I just wanted to ask that follow-up question because, it's hard for people, not only when I have to tell them, I think you need to push your test date back, but also when I have to tell people, I think you need to study from scratch, or if you're thinking that you can do this in a month, I think you might need 2 months. It's when you're tired and you're done with this whole thing emotionally, it's very hard to hear that feedback. So thank you for being real about it and sharing how difficult it was. And now we get to see that it all worked out, though, which is beautiful. So, just a couple more questions.
Mhm.
What would you say to someone who's just like you? They had gone through this process a few times, they feel beaten up by it, they're exhausted, they don't know if they can keep going, but they still want to pass. What words of encouragement would you give?
Um, well, I know for me, I kind of needed to understand that it's time sensitive, but it's not a race. And the more you try to rush, it's almost like you're fighting against yourself, you're fighting against time. And so when I had to kind of come to a place of acceptance that this is just going to take time, and giving myself, like, that was the biggest theme throughout all of this. Even like before I found you, I didn't mention this, I actually took 6 months off of studying because I had to. I was so, again, beaten up, defeated, and I was just kind of like, and again, just not feeling good, not feeling good about myself. So I like went back to the gym. I, had gotten my eating habits together, my sleeping habits had been off. I mean, so I really just had to take 6 months, and that killed me to do, because again, I just wanted to be finished. And so I think if I had accepted that earlier, I probably would have been done much earlier. So I guess to those type A's, to those overachievers, to those people who are used to just going in the room and doing what you need to do, and one and done, it's not that type of situation. You have to slow down. You have to give yourself time and grace. It is possible. It's not over, it's not impossible, but you do have to prioritize taking care of yourself. You have to, and also make sure you're in an okay space to do this as well. As I mentioned earlier, the time that I started studying coincided with actually a few family issues, transitions. I moved like 3 times in the year. I resigned from my job with the school that same year. So like there was a lot of stuff going on that required a lot of my attention and my energy. And again, not having any understanding of what this test required, I just didn't have the capacity. So making sure you have the capacity, and also there's just no way to rush this process. So
Hmm.
do what you need to do and take your time to get through this. It's almost like going back to, it really was like going back to school. And that's another thing to take into consideration. I really did not anticipate having to essentially be a student again after getting my doctorate. It was like, okay, how many times? And I remember like having that theme too. Like I'm always trying to prove myself. Like, when is it to where I don't have to prove myself anymore, where I've done enough, you know? So it's not a rush, it's not a race. The more you rush yourself, the more you're kind of working against yourself, and make sure you're in a good state of mind to do this. And if you have to take time off, take your time and do what you need to do, and then come back.
Absolutely. That was the best advice I think anyone could give someone. Oh, thank you so much. And I hope that really touches and inspires someone. So I just have one last question before we end today. Now that you are free from the EPPP,
Mm-hmm.
what's some things that you're excited about, both professionally and personally, that you get to do now that you have all this time back?
I'm going on vacation. I
Yes.
I am going on vacation. I don't even know where I'm going yet, because honestly, I didn't fully believe that I was going to get it this time. But that's what I'm doing. I'm going on vacation. I'm going back to prioritizing my health. You know, I got a goal in mind for where I want to be and what I want to do. And honestly, just enjoying my time, you know, like reading books. Like I was reading a book earlier today, and I'm like, I don't feel guilty about reading a book just for the enjoyment of it. Um, you know, I have ideas of what I want to do career wise, but honestly, I'm just taking time off. So I'm
Yes.
excited to do that. Just take time off and just enjoy my time in my life, and you know, that being that.
Beautiful. Oh, I wish you, so much, leisure time, a sense of freedom, and really a sense of peace as well. Oh, and prosperity.
Thank you. That part. All that other stuff, but that part.
Wonderful. Well, I wish you nothing but the best.